Hello everyone, in this video we're going to go over how to fill out the Canadian passport application. If you have already uploaded the form, this is the form. If you have already downloaded and you're ready to just fill the application, just skip through the first 10 minutes of this video, and then I have gone through step by step on how to fill out this application. If you haven't downloaded the form yet, then we're gonna go over step by step on where you can get this form and how you can download it and start filling it out. So I have already included all the links in the bio, but if for some reason the links don't work, or if you don't want to copy and paste it, just go on Google and type Canadian passport application. Then the first link that pops up, this one, how to apply for an adult passport in Canada, this is the one that you want to click on. It's going to bring you to this page. Then you gotta scroll down, answer a few very basic questions like when you need your passport. I'm going to choose the first option. If you choose this option, option number 2 or option number 3, then they're going to make you to pay an extra fee, an extra urgent processing fee. So if you're not in a rush, I highly recommend you to pick this option. Then you only have to pay the application fee and you don't have to pay the extra urgent processing fee. After you pick the option that is best for you, then you gotta move on to the next question. It's asking if you have already a passport. This is for people, this video is for people who are applying for the passport for their first time. So I'm just gonna say no. Then it's asking how you want to apply. We're gonna say in person. It's for this question, you have to, if it's your first time, you just gotta choose none of the above. If it's your first time to apply for Canadian passport, you just have to choose none of the above. Then it's gonna bring you to this part of the site. This is just telling you what step you have to go through in order to get your Canadian passport. You have to complete the form. Then you have to gather all the documents and find 2 references and then submit your application and pay the fee and get your passport. I have another video that goes into more details about these requirements. Feel free to check that out if you want to. But here I'm just going to go over how you can actually download the form and how you can actually start filling it out. So here, as you can see right here, it says download the adult passport application. This is where you want to click on. Okay, now that we have the form downloaded and we're ready to answer the question, we can scroll down and start answering all the questions one by one together. So the first section of this application, this is all about you and it's all your information. So let's start answering the question. It's asking about your family name. I am going to use all capital letters. I just want to make sure that there will not be any confusion when I'm actually sending the application. So I am going to use all capital letters and I highly recommend you to do so as well. First question, family name, and then second question is asking for your name. Just gonna say music. If you've ever had any other family names, this is where you wanna state them. This is where you wanna mention. If you've never had any other family name, just leave this part blank and move on to the next question, which is surname of a parent at birth. For this question, I recommend to include mother's surname at birth. So we're just going to say Johnson, mother's surname at birth. Then it's asking for the applicant's place of birth. So the person who is trying to get the Canadian passport, they want their date of birth here. We're just going to say it was at, the person was born in Istanbul and the country is Turkey. If you were born in any other country, you just type the name of the city and then pick the country that you were born in, and then you can just move on to the next section. Here I'm looking for Turkey. Turkey. And for this section, if this doesn't apply to you, just leave it blank. Then it's asking for your date of birth. We're gonna say the person was born. We're gonna say we were born on 1966, August 7th. Change it to 1966. Then you have to choose your gender. Then you have to choose your eye color. Then it's asking for your height. It can be either in centimeter or inch. Then you have to enter your current home address. The first part is the street number. So let's say it's 24 Victoria Park Avenue. Victoria Park Avenue. If it's in the building, you gotta include the unit number. We're gonna say 406 in this case. Then for the city, we're gonna say Toronto. Province, you just pick the province. And the postal code, I'm gonna say M1M 2E2. And for mailing address, if your mailing address is the same as your home address, the address that you just entered, then you just leave this part blank and you move on to the next section, which is email address. But if your mailing address is different, you must type it here. And keep in mind that they are going to send you your Canadian passport to your mailing address. So if it's different, make sure you enter the address that you want your Canadian passport to be mailed to, because the mailing address is the address that they're going to submit your Canadian passport to. But in this case, we're going to say that the home address and the mailing address are the same, so I'm just going to leave it blank and move on to the next question, which is the email address. We're going to say the email address is I don't know, just some fake email address. Then you gotta enter your phone number. If you have any other phone number, this is where you should include it. If not, you can just leave it blank. Then you have to Then you have sign here. I don't know why this is not working. Then you have to sign here within the border. So you should make sure that your signature is within the border. And then after you're done signing it, you gotta make sure you you write the date, you enter the city that you're signing this application at, and the province. So I'm just gonna say, so for the date, you can just type it now, or you can just after you print the application, when you're signing it, you can just write it with a pen. It's up to you. Either way is fine. I'm just gonna type it here just to make sure to show you that you have to fill all these information. Make sure you also fill the province. You don't want to miss that. Also date, I'm just gonna enter like let's just say 2024 0807. This must be the date that you actually signed this must be the date that you actually sign the application. So if it's different, so if you're planning to sign the application next week, then you got to make sure that you actually date it for next week. So it's got to be the date that you're signing the application. After you filled all these information and after you signed your application here within the border, then you can move on to the next section, section number 2. This section is for your guarantor's information. So this is all about your guarantor's information and not about your information. It's about your guarantors. It's asking for your guarantor. Your guarantors must be, it can be your family member, it can be a person you've known for quite some time, or it can be a friend, or again, it can be a family member. But that person, your guarantor, must have a Canadian passport in order for them to be able to be your guarantor. If they do not have, if they are Canadian citizen, but they don't have a Canadian passport, then they cannot be your guarantor in this case. They must have a Canadian passport, and they must include the passport number in their passport number in this application, as well as the date their passport was issued, as well as the date of expiry of their passport. Also keep in mind that your guarantor, the person whose information will be included in this paragraph right here, must sign on the back of one of your two pictures that you must attach to this application when you're applying for Canadian citizenship. I have already made a video about documents and documents that you need to apply for Canadian passport. Feel free to check that out. And I did go into more details about who the guarantor can be and what they should write on the back of your photo and when they're acting as your guarantor, because they have to write something on the back of your photo and they also have to sign it, and it has to be the same person that is your guarantor, you're naming as your guarantor here. Feel free to check that video. Hopefully it will be helpful. But so let's say that I have the information of my guarantor. My guarantor is a Canadian citizen, and he does have a passport. He does have a Canadian passport. Again, if the guarantor doesn't have a Canadian passport, he cannot be your guarantor. And again, the guarantor can be your brother, mother, father, or a friend that you've known for quite some time. It can be anyone. So let's say let's answer these questions about my guarantor. So it's asking for the surname of my guarantor, and it's got to be the same surname that it shows on their passport. Let's say it's Brown. I'm gonna write it in capital. Let's say their surname on their passport is Brown. Their name is Sam. The name is Sam. Their date of birth, we're gonna say they were born in 1960. 0809. Then it's asking for their passport number, Canadian passport number. We're just gonna type something fake, and then the date that their passport was issued, we're gonna say it was issued in July 11th, 2024. Canadian passports are usually expire within 5 to 10 years. So we're gonna say it's their passport is going to expire on 2034 07011. Then they have you have to say who this guarantor to you, the relationship to you. In this case, we're gonna say it's, I don't know, it's my friend. We're just gonna say it's my friend. Then you have to include their phone number. So the guarantor's phone number, we're gonna say it's this one. If they have any other phone number, you can include it here. Then you have to include the guarantor's current home address. We're gonna say 56 Warden Avenue. If this is an apartment, you just have to enter the unit. If you can just leave it blank, then we're gonna say it's in Toronto. Toronto. The province is Ontario, and then you have to enter a postal code. We're gonna say, okay, and here is where your guarantor must sign. This is your guarantor's signature. This is where your guarantors must sign. After they sign it, they have to write down the number of years that they've known you for, and then they have to date it, and then they have to type down the city. They have to write down the name of the city that they're signing this application at, as well as the province. If your guarantor is your brother, then for this question right here, and if you're 24 years old and your guarantor is your brother, then when for this question you have to enter your how old you are. So you gotta let them know that, well, this is my brother, right? And they've known me since I was born, and I'm 24 years old, so they've known me for 24 years. But again, if it's just a friend and they've known you for 3 years, you can just type 3 here. And then the guarantor must sign it here. Then they must date the application. They must state in which city they are signing at. signing this application and which province, and also answer this question. You can just say 3 here. And then again, the guarantor must sign on the back of one of your picture. The same person who is your guarantor, whose name is here, must sign the back of your picture. After you're done with section 2, which was the guarantor, which was only about your guarantor's information, you can move on to section 3. So for section 3 of this application, it's asking if you've ever had a Canadian travel document. If the answer to this question is no, then you pick no and you move on to section 4. If the answer to this question is yes, then you have to include, hold on, let me show you. Then you have to include, it's going to ask you to include the travel document number as well as the date that that travel document was issued. After you included those information, you can just move on to section 4. You don't need to be worried about this this sentence here. Just ignore it and move on to section 4. I'm just gonna tell you one more time. If you have had a travel document, you click yes, you enter these information, you fill out this information, and then you move on to this section. If you've never had a travel document before, you click no, and you just move on to section 4 of the application. The section 4 of this application, it has 2 sections. And if you were, section A is only for, section A is for people who were born in Canada. So if you were born in Canada, you are going to ignore this part. You're going to leave this part blank. You're going to answer these questions, and then you're going to move after, after you answer this, God damn it. After you answer these questions, then you're going to move to the next section, which is section 5. If you were born in Canada. So again, one more time. If you were born in Canada, you fill out this section, section A. You fill out section A. And then you ignore section B. You just leave that blank. Let me just clear all this. You leave this blank, and then after that you move on to section 5. Now, if you were born outside Canada, then you must fill out section B. You ignore this part, you leave this part blank. You don't answer any of the questions. You don't pick any of these options. You just leave it blank. Leave everything blank. Ignore it. You start answering these questions, and then you move on to section 5. So for the sake of this video, we're gonna say that we were born outside Canada. We're just gonna say we were born outside Canada. So we're not gonna do this part. We're just gonna leave it blank. We're gonna ignore it, and we're gonna move on to section B, which is for people who were born outside of Canada. So it's asking you for section B, for people who were born outside Canada, it's asking you to provide one document. It can be either of these, it can be any of these. You just need to pick one. In this case, we're gonna say certificate of Canadian citizenship. Then you have to include the certificate number. We're going to say this is the number. Then you have to include the date that is shown on the certificate. So on the certificate and the Canadian citizenship certificate, you see a date that the certificate was issued or granted. That's the date you must enter here. After you enter the date here, then you're going to move on to this question. This question is only for people who were born outside Canada between these dates. So if you were born between February 15, 1977 and April 16, 1981, then you have to answer these 2 questions. if you were born, if you were not born in these dates, between these dates, then you ignore these questions and leave them blank. You don't answer them. You just move on to the next section. I mentioned in the beginning of the video that I was born in 1966. 1966 is not between these dates, so I can just move down to section number 5 and leave these questions blank, and you do not need to answer them if you were not born between these years outside of Canada. So if you were not born outside of Canada in these dates, between these dates, you just move on to section 5 after you included the certificate number and the date, and you chose the type of document you're willing to show. Then you just move on to section 5. But if you were born between these dates, then you must answer these 2 questions. I'm not going to answer these 2 questions. I'm just going to leave it blank because, as I said at the beginning of the video, I was born in 1966, so I can easily move down to section number 5. 1966 is not between these dates, so I can just ignore this question and leave them blank. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next section, section 5. So section number 5 is very, very easy. It's asking for the type of document that you are willing to show when you are applying for your Canadian citizenship. It can be your health card and it can be your driver license. So you need at least 1 document to support your identity. Again, it can be your driver license. The ID must be valid and must be issued by a federal, provincial, and government territory. And the ID must include your name, date of birth, signature, and photo. 1 or more documents, when combined, may be used to fulfill this criteria. Again, as I mentioned, you can have you can include your driver license information here. You can say for the type of document, the type of document, you can say health card. Just gonna say health card, and then you have to include the health card number, and then the date of expiry on that health card. We're just gonna say the date of expiry, we're gonna say I don't know, I'm gonna say 2026, and your name as it appears on that document. So usually it's all in capital letters, so make sure you include the name as it's shown on the document. We're just gonna say I don't remember how. So here you just have to, like, if it's I don't remember if it's first name first and then last name, or if it's last name first and then first name. I don't remember that. So we're just gonna say this is how it's shown on the document. But if it's on the health card, it's your family name first, and then it's your name. Make sure you include it. You type it like that. I just don't remember which one comes first. Again, and one more thing that you must remember: the type of document that you mentioned here, that you stated here, you must have it with you when you are applying for the Canadian citizenship. When you go to the office to apply for the Canadian passport, you must have this document that you're mentioning here with you. So if you're saying that I'm going to use my health card, so you must have your health card with you alongside with this application when you're applying for your Canadian passport. If you're saying that, no, I want to have my driver license, you're just going to say driver license here, and then you must make sure that you have your driver license with you along with this application when you're applying for your passport. Then you have to sign it, then you have to date it. After you're done signing and dating this part, then you can move on to the next section. Again, you at least 1 piece of ID. It can be health card or driver license. Either one works, but whichever you pick, you must have it with you along with the application when you're applying for your Canadian passport. After you're done with this section, you can just scroll down to section 6. So section 6 of this application is very easy. You just have to pick if you want a 5-year passport or a 10-year passport. So do you want your passport to expire within 5 years or within 10 years? So in terms of money, the 5-year passport is a little bit cheaper. But if money is not a problem for you, let me see if I find how much exactly. If money is not a problem for you, I highly recommend you to pick the 10-year option. So where is it? Let me just see if I can find it. Okay, here. So the 5-year option is $120 and the 10-year option is $160. So there's only $40 difference. So if you have the money, I highly recommend you to go with option number 2, 10-year passport. It is a bit more cost effective if you ask me, because I mean the difference is only $40. So if you have the money and money is not a problem for you at the time, go for the 10-year option. Pick 10-year. But again, if you don't have that money at the time, then you can just pick 5-year. But again, for 10-year is I believe 10-year passport is a better option and is more cost effective. So we're just gonna pick this option, 10-year. Then we're gonna move on to section. So section 7 of this application is asking for some extra personal, some personal information. It's asking about your home address for the last 2 years, if you've changed your home address during the last 2 years, and also what you were doing during the last 2 years. It's very easy and straightforward. If your address has been the same for the last 2 years, you just pick this option. You're just gonna say, sorry, this one. Delete. You're just gonna pick this option, same as current address. If your address has always been the same as the last 2 years, you're just gonna pick that option. If your address has been changed, if you lived, I don't know, in different houses during the last 2 years, you just wanna include those addresses here. For the sake of this video, I'm gonna go ahead and say, yes, my address was different from my current home address during the last 2 years. I'm gonna say, I don't know, I lived, my address was 45, you know what, I'm gonna say it was Pharmacy Avenue, and it was not apartment, so I'm just gonna leave the number blank. Then I'm gonna say it was in Toronto, it was in Ontario, the country is Canada, Canada, the postal code was K1K 2K3. Then you have to enter the dates that you've been residing at this address. We're gonna say it was from 20, and make sure it's for the last 2 years. So we're gonna say from 2020 August to 2024 July. I was living in this address. If there's another address, you can just include that. If not, then you can just move on to section B, which is the occupation for the last 2 years. You can pick either this one. I was employed full-time or part-time. I was in a school full-time or part-time, or other. If you're unemployed, retired, or a homemaker, you can choose this one. I'm just gonna say, that I don't know, I was both in school and I was employed. I'm gonna say, so from 20, so I'm gonna say that from 2020, I had to enter information. I gotta include the month. 2020, it doesn't let me to include the month. Okay, from 2020-09 to 2023, I don't know, 06 seats. I was at school. I'm gonna say school, and I'm gonna say York University. Then I'm gonna say school. Then I have to include the address for York University. We're gonna say 1534 Sills Avenue. Then the telephone number for York University, you're just gonna come up with something. Let's say this is the telephone number. And then field of study, we're just gonna say, I don't know, business. Yes. Oops. Then I'm gonna say I ended up, after graduation, I got a job at AO Insurance. I'm gonna say employer here. Employer. Then I'm gonna give them their address. Let's say it was at Finch Avenue. Then the telephone number of the company, let's say it's this. And what I'm doing there, I'm gonna say I'm a data analyst. And the date I'm gonna say was from right after graduation, 2023, 07 to let's say 20. I can't write current, because if I do that, then I'm gonna get an error. Just make sure to include the month. The current month. If you're still working here, you're just gonna give them the date and the month that we're in. In this case, it's August. We're just gonna say 2024 August. So this is showing so this is all I've done during the last 2 years. I've included it here. I've also checked the boxes after you're done entering these information. Also for my home address, I did say that my home address, my current home address was different from the one that I was living in during the last 2 years, and I also made sure to include it here. I included the dates and everything. And after filling out all this information, I can just move on to the next section, which is reference. So for the references, you have to include the information for 2 people that are not your family member or relatives and are not your guarantor. They must be over the age of 18, and you must be able to they must allow you to include their information here. You need 2 people who are not family members or relatives and are over the age of 18, and they know you for at least 2 years. So they must know you for at least 2 years. If they only know you for 1 year, you can have their information. You can write their information as your references. They must know you for 2 years. They must be over 18, and they must not be your relatives nor your guarantor. So when you have the information for those 2 people, you can just start filling out their information. You can, for the first one, we're just gonna, let's say that we do have 2 people who are not my relative and they know me more than 2 years and that they're over the age of 18. I'm just gonna say the last name is gonna be, let's say the last name is White. The first name we're gonna say is Rosa. Relationship, I can just say friend. And their current home address, we're gonna say 67. For the street, I'm just gonna say Leslie Street. If they're living in an apartment, you want to include that here. Then the city they're living in and the province. Then the country, Canada, and their postal code. Their telephone number. If they have a second telephone number, and their email address. I don't know, I'm just gonna write down a fake email address at yahoo.com. And then you have to answer this question, how long they know you for. Again, it's gotta be more than 2 years. We're just gonna say 3. or 4, doesn't matter. Then you gotta enter the information for the second person, your second reference. We're gonna say it's I don't know, Black is their family name. Their name is Sarah. Relationship, we're just gonna say friend again. Their address is 65 Pharmacy Avenue, and they're in the house. They don't have an apartment number, so I can just leave it blank. And then I'm gonna say Toronto, Ontario, and country, Canada. The postal code, I can just say again L2L, 2L2. Their telephone number. If they have a second telephone number, you just type it there. If not, you just leave it blank. Then for the email address, we're just gonna say, just gonna type their email address, and then answer the question. This question, how long they know you for, we're just gonna say 4. After you're done entering entering your references information, you can just either stop the application. You're finished. You don't have to do this. This is optional. It's the emergency contact information, but it is optional. So again, if you don't do this, if you don't have anyone, if you don't want anyone, if you don't want to be, if you don't want anyone to contact your emergency contact information, then don't include it here. But if you want, again, this is optional. If you don't fill it out, no one is gonna ask you why. No one is gonna tell you why you didn't fill it out. You can just leave it blank, and that's it. You're done. You can just print this application, sign it, and then take it with you and apply for your Canadian passport. But make sure you do have the documents. Again, I do have another video about all the documents that you need to have with you when you're applying for your Canadian passport. Feel free to check that out to make sure that you have them all and you're not missing anything. But if you want to fill out the section, you can do that. Again, it's optional. You don't have to do it. If you don't want to enter information for anyone, then don't fill it out. If you want, it's very easy. I'm gonna show you how. It's very easy. You can just enter your again, it can be your guarantor. It can be the information of your guarantor or anyone you want, anyone who you want to have as your emergency contact. It can be anyone. If you don't want to, you don't have to fill it out. I'm just gonna fill it out. I'm just gonna say, I don't know, I want my emergency contact information. It's gonna be my, let's say it's my, I'm gonna say the relationship is my sister. They're gonna say her name is Tina. Her last name is, let's say, we're gonna say Ross. And then again, relationship is sister. Telephone, you just enter their telephone. And then if they have a second telephone, then you enter their email address. We're just gonna say tina@yahoo.com. Then their current home address, Victoria Park Avenue. If they're living in an apartment, then you have to include the unit number, city, province, and then the postal code 3R3. And then you have to sign your application, and then you have to date it. But again, if you do not want to contact anyone, if you don't want to include anyone's information for your contact, for your emergency contact information, that's okay. It's optional, but make sure you sign your application and date it. You must sign and date the application. Then you can just print this application and you are done. You don't have to print these are just for you. These are for you to go over, and if it's just some extra information for the applicant. You don't have to print these. After you entered all the information, after you signed here and dated here, you are finished. There are 2 ways to pay. You can either, if you're paying in person, all you have to do in order to pay is to make sure that you have a credit card with you, or you have a card with you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a credit card. You must make sure that you have a card with you to pay. If you're paying by mail, if you're sending the application by mail, you must include a check. But if you're applying in person, just make sure that you have your card with you. Then they will ask you to pay at the counter. If you have any further questions, just let me know. I'll try my best to answer those questions. Hope this video helps.